Hello and welcome. You are listening to an informed take on current events brought to you by law students and staff of Queen's University Belfast. This is LawPod.
Hello and welcome to another episode of LawPod. My name is Charlotte Gourley and I will be presenting this episode along with Debora Mosso. This episode will be about Queen's University Belfast Report and Support, a service for students who are affected by either sexual misconduct, bullying, harassment and hate crime. We are joined by John Finnigan, who is a Student Wellbeing Officer here at Queen's and is QUB Report and Support Advisor. So firstly, John, could you tell us what is QUB Report and Support and how long has this service been running for students?
I can indeed, and thank you very much for inviting me along today to the Law Pod. I think it's always great, when we have the opportunity to kind of share and raise awareness about the report and support system. It's actually been going for a few years now, so it launched at the start of January 2019, and it's a tool that's used kind of widely across the UK. It was developed by a company called Culture Shift, and we decided to kind of purchase the license for that. And like I say, I've been operating it now for over 2 years. Basically, the system is for students to report any incident of serious misconduct, which actually said falls under either sexual misconduct, bullying, harassment, or any form of hate crime. When students go onto the website, and I'll be giving you the details as we go through, Charlotte, but when students go onto the website, they can either do an anonymous report or they can do a direct report. And that can be an incident that has either happened recently, is non-recent, so it can be historical, and it can happen either on campus or off campus. So there's no real limitation to reporting any incident. The direct report then will come through to myself as administrator on the system. And at that stage, what I would do is reach out to the student and offer them either a phone call or a meeting, and that can be with myself or one of the other team of advocates. And I'm sure we'll chat about the safe and healthy relationship advocates as we go on as well. It is important just to kind of make students aware that once they complete a report, it's not actually a complaint at that stage. So there was a wee bit of kind of myths around that. And the reason for that is really just to give people as much control as possible. So a student may wish to go ahead and make a complaint, and certainly, I'm very happy to support them in doing that and giving them as much information as they need to do that. But again, I just wouldn't want that to be a barrier as well of any students who didn't necessarily want to kind of make a complaint, but did want to reach out and get a bit of support. So essentially, the direct report is a request for support from one of the advocates.
What sort of incidents are commonly reported, and how would you go about reporting anonymously?
So we do see a range of incidents, reported. So from, like I say, from sexual misconduct to online abuse, we've seen quite a bit this year, bullying and harassment, and also hate crime as well. And in Northern Ireland, hate crime is covered under different kind of categories. So there can be sectarian hate crime, there can be racial hate crime, disability hate crime, and homophobic hate crime. So we see all types of cases. When a student is making a direct report, they have a choice of which category they want to tick, and they can tick multiple categories as well. So what you may find is, if it's a case of bullying, there may be harassment involved in that as well. It could be domestic abuse. So they have the opportunity to tick as many categories as they wish. And there's also an other option as well. So if it doesn't directly relate, they can include an other, and we do get that as well that come through. I should have said as well, Charlotte, so on the system, when you go onto it, you will find support pages as well. So that is under all the different categories. So like we said, domestic abuse, and we'll explain a wee bit about what each of those are and where to get support as well. So, we've spent a bit of time around the support pages. We're always kind of updating those as well. For instance, there was a new video released yesterday on coercive control, which I've now uploaded onto the system. So it's just trying to give as much information to students. And really, I want I want the system to be a preventative tool as well. So it may be a case where you just go along and have a read of the information and just find out different information about what is a healthy relationship, etc., etc.
Yeah, so it's a form of education as well for students.
Yeah, and you were saying about the anonymous reporting as well. So basically, the anonymous reporting form is exactly the same as the direct form without any detailed information. So name, student number, etc., isn't included in that. So when the anonymous report comes through to myself, I don't know who has sent it. I will just see the information that's been provided. So it may say that a certain incident has happened. It may say where that was, who the student is. We do collate all that data and we keep a check for any trends that are kind of coming through the anonymous reporting. And sometimes we are, with the information that's provided, we are able to kind of take a proactive kind of approach if it's, named any particular faculty or any particular school, and there may be issues of bullying in there. We can address that with the staff in the school as well, without obviously mentioning any names or breaching any confidentiality.
You get the reports yourself. So what's your main role within reporting support? So would you kind of deal with anyone who makes a report directly, or do you kind of oversee the process?
Yeah, so my role, Deborah, at Queen's is Safe and Healthy Relationships Wellbeing Advisor. And my main role is to support students. But as I was explaining earlier, we do have a team of advocates. So they are specially trained staff members from across the university who have been specially trained as well to support students. So when a report comes through, initially comes through to myself as admin on the system, I will kind of review that. Normally a student will be contacted within 3 working days, and that's during term time, and they'll receive an email from myself with just some support information in there, but also an offer to kind of meet with either myself, or if they would prefer to meet with a female, we can accommodate that as well. So really at that stage, it's about giving the student as much choice. We can offer either a phone call, a meeting through Teams, face-to-face is another option as well. So we try and give as much kind of choice, and also the time of that meeting, if they want to kind of meet, later than 5, we're normally a 9 to 5 service, but we can be a bit flexible around that as well. So it's just trying to give the students as much choice as possible. So yes, I do support the students, and I would take the majority of cases that would come through, and the rest of the cases would be taken up then by our team of advocates. We have at the minute around 9 advocates, and we may be looking to kind of recruit further advocates later in the year. So please look out for that information that will be kind of shared with all staff. Just to say, my background is working with victims and survivors of abuse. And prior to working for Queen's, I've been working at Queen's since 2017. But prior to that, I worked for a leading kind of national charity on a sexual exploitation project. So, I do have a background of working with survivors.
And what would you say would stop students from maybe reaching out or reporting an incident, not necessarily an incident that directly affects them?
I think societally, we kind of see that as well. There definitely is an underreporting, particularly around sexual offences as well. So I think it can be sometimes just that fear of the unknown. What's going to happen if I do tell someone here? So I'm always very mindful of that as well, and we're always trying to kind of reduce those barriers, as much as possible. And the universities have been working on this area of work for a long time now, and we have been kind of picking up on the work from UK universities around changing the culture. So it's just looking at those barriers, and it may be obviously telling and fear as well. There's a lot of fear generated, particularly if someone has been harassed by someone or is living in a domestic abusive relationship. So it can be very difficult, and that can be the most dangerous time is when someone is ready to kind of reach out and get that support. So we're very, very mindful of that, and we're very sensitive around that, and all the decisions are made by the students. So if they want to get signposted to further support, external support. If they want to kind of go to police, I can support them to do that. But essentially, it has to be their choice. It's not for me to decide that, they need to go here or they need to do this. So it's very much about having those honest conversations. Sometimes when students kind of come initially, they're not really sure. They're kind of thinking, I'm in a relationship. My partner is is a bit, abusive at times, but I'm not sure. And sometimes it's just about talking over that and just getting them to kind of see that and recognize that, by doing a bit of work around that. So yeah, it can be kind of really difficult. There also is, I suppose, if it does involve another student or another staff member, just that difficulty around, if I make a complaint, what's going to happen here? What's going to be the repercussions? So very much so it's about just reassuring the student that actually, the university has policies and procedures in place. We have a student sexual misconduct policy, and we have an anti-bullying and harassment policy. And, we take a zero tolerance approach to all these matters. So sometimes it is just about reassuring the student and making sure that, they feel safe.
Yeah, so it seems like you really tailor the support that you give to students depending on what issue they're having, especially in relation to their fears as well.
Yeah, it very much is. And that's why sometimes it is difficult when people ask, what support is available, because it very much is tailored to kind of individual. So, it may be a student who is disclosing something that's happened, during childhood or something that's happened, a while ago, and it may not involve another Queen student. So, really they're not looking to make a complaint, or they're not looking to, any of those kind of services. So really that's just about providing that emotional support. It also could be a student who, it's been a recent event and they may need, medical assistance. So again, that's something that we can signpost to, and there are specialist services in Northern Ireland for people who, particularly around sexual assault, if it was an immediate sexual assault and they needed, immediate medical help, again, that's something that we can kind of assist with, or police. So yeah, it very much is tailored, to the student, and it's really just about providing that initial emotional support, and assisting them with whatever, and that's ongoing as well. So some of the cases, last for as long as maybe 6 months or longer, and it's just those regular check-ins, that we'll have with the students, just to check in how they're doing, and how things are with them. So yeah.
Yeah. And what can students do if they are aware of harassment or a harmful incident that's happened? What procedure would they go through?
I think the first thing really is, I would advise students to kind of go on to Report and Support first of all, and just really kind of look through the support pages and kind of check that out. And there is a section around harassment. There's a section around sexual misconduct. So again, I think what I was saying earlier around students sometimes just not being sure of, is this happening? What's the law? The law as well in Northern Ireland, as you will know, is changing, so it is being updated. There are new legislation coming in around domestic abuse, and there's going to be new stalking legislation later. And there was a hate crime review recently as well. So the law is changing as well. And I think sometimes it's just about trying to get as much information as possible. So I would recommend that they, first of all, check out the system. They can do an anonymous report just to really, and that's what we're finding with the system is that students are maybe initially doing an anonymous report and then completing a direct report. Later on, we do ask in the direct report, have you completed an anonymous report before? So, that's really good, and that's why we have, and that's really sometimes the need for the anonymous report is just to give students that confidence initially to make the report, see what it was like, and then once they complete a direct report, then they will get an email back from myself. I would also suggest that students talk to someone, and that can be a friend, it can be professionals through ourselves, through student wellbeing, it could be a lecturer, it could be like a helpline as well. And I'm going to give you some details at the end that the students can kind of contact. But yeah, please just reach out and talk to someone. And again, if you're thinking actually, is this really kind of harassment? I'm not sure, that sometimes they're not so nice, sometimes they are nice. I think it's really just about having a conversation and just checking that out, but going with your gut feeling as well, that kind of gut instinct. We all have that kind of feeling, and we know when something just isn't quite right, and if someone's behaving in a way that's not appropriate. So yeah, I would suggest, please talk to someone, whoever it is.
And in terms of long-term support, what can students expect to receive? Like, is it sort of an ongoing thing as they're going through the process of making the report, say they're reporting something to the police, or, after that's been reported? Is that the end of it, or does it continue after that?
It does, yeah. I suppose, Deborah, just what I was saying before, it really depends on the individual circumstances
Mm-hmm.
and also on the student as well. They may get a level of support and decide, actually, this is enough for me at the minute. I don't need any more. And what we can do in the system now is we can close a case, but we can reopen it at a later date. So there's always that option. But particularly anyone who is going through either a complaints process or has made a report to police, those types of reports are going to be a bit longer, just for the nature of kind of going through the judicial system and waiting on PPS to decide, etc. And if it goes to court. So in those types of cases, we would provide that kind of ongoing support, and that may just be maybe a check-in, every once a month, just to see how the student's doing. I should have said as well, in terms of other support, what we can do is support the student in terms of the academic side of things. And as you'll appreciate, students who maybe have experienced an incident around serious misconduct, that can have an impact on their academic kind of progress, just their day-to-day life. It can have a huge impact, and that's the purpose of my role, is trying to support students throughout so that they can achieve, and they can kind of do their best in terms of their course. So some students may wish to take a bit of a break at that stage. Others may just need some extensions, and that's something, again, that the advocate can support them with and can speak with the school without getting into any, obviously, breaching any confidentiality, but just explain to the school that they are being supported through student wellbeing, and we can provide that support as well.
So can an advocate contact the student's course advisor or about assignments and deadlines as well, just to help them academically?
Yeah, so at the first meeting with the student, the advocate will complete just a short form with them, and they'll get more information on the incident. I should have said as well, once you complete a report, you'll see at the front page it says don't mention any names, because what we're trying again to do is not take control away. So if I was aware of a crime that had been committed, a serious crime, I may have an obligation to pass that on to police. And I really don't want to have to do that unless the student wishes me to do that. So we don't ask for any names. And similarly, when we're speaking with the student at the first meeting, we'll kind of reiterate that around our legal obligations. So we do take a bit of information from the student, just maybe more details that haven't come through the report. We'll discuss any kind of risks. And again, that could be a risk in relation to a partner. So we'll kind of discuss that and discuss a safety plan. And we'll also discuss support options. And part of those support options could be speaking with a school, speaking with an advisor of studies or a personal tutor, or someone more senior in the school. But really, this was the student has to give me consent to do that. I can't really do that, again, without their consent. So it will be agreed between the advocate and the student what level of support, what is needed, and what should be shared. And I find that system has been working relatively smoothly since report support's been going.
And what issues have you addressed through campaigns? I know you've done a few different campaigns at different times focusing on particular issues. So what kind of topics have you covered so far, and maybe what topics would you want to cover in future?
Yeah, we've done a few campaigns, and we've also supported other campaigns, kind of national campaigns. So there was the No Grey Zone campaign that the police had run with partners, and our student union were involved in that as well. That was a social media campaign, again, around consent and really trying to get the word out there about what is consent, because again, there can be a lot of myths around that. So we were very happy to support that campaign, and we do have a campaign section on the report and support website, so we do host some of those campaigns. In terms of our own campaigns, we had a campaign called Call It Out, and again, that was really about speaking out about sexual harassment, bullying and harassment, and having the confidence, to do that. And I know that can be very difficult. And they were stickers, kind of posters that have been placed on toilet doors across campus. We'd actually spoken to some of our colleagues across the water in different universities, and they had suggested that this was one of the universities found that this was really particularly effective in raising awareness with students. So they're actually still there because of COVID. They were meant to be taken down over a year ago, but they are there. And I know it is difficult. The students aren't on campus at the minute, but we are always looking at different ways to kind of get the word out to students. So we are looking at different things in terms of induction, registration, and freshers is always a particularly good time to raise awareness with students. But I appreciate there's lots of information that students are getting at freshers, and they aren't necessarily maybe thinking about report and support. And sometimes it is unfortunately, it only is an area of interest when an incident happens, either to a friend or to yourself. But yeah, so we're always continually thinking of different ways to kind of get the message out there. We did do a consent camp as well a couple of years, and again, that was at freshers during the initial registration, and we had kind of bouncy castles and burgers, free burgers and ice cream on the lawn there at the Lanyon. But we also had partners from organisations, the police, Brook, those types of organisations that were able to provide information around consent as well. So that was more a lighthearted way of trying to kind of sell consent. We have looked at workshops as well in the past. That can be difficult to get students to come along to those, either through embarrassment or just a feeling that I don't need to do this. And I personally, I feel that everyone needs educated around consent. It's certainly a school issue for school children kind of coming up through post-secondary, but also university students as well. I think we all kind of need to know what the law is and the intricacies of sexual consent as well. And then in terms of other campaigns, we did a Belong event last year, and we've had various events around hate crime. Again, we have good links with hate crime agencies that support the general public around hate crime, and again, they can support people to go to the police and report any instance of hate crime. So there's 4 particular charities that we work with, and we're always looking to do different events with them.
Obviously, the past academic year has been quite different for us all. Have you seen an increase in reports in the past year?
Yes, I should have said as well, the report and support system, at the back of the system, it acts as a case record. So that's where all students' information is kept, very securely. But it also has a data analytics section as well. So we're able to track our figures, and we can do that year in, year out, monthly, quarterly. I do report those figures through to senior management as well. So yeah, I was just actually looking at our numbers there recently, and I would say that definitely our numbers are up probably around 20% since last academic year. Particularly around sexual harassment, we've seen an increase in reporting around that, and also online bullying. And I think that's indicative of a lot of people being online now as well, and lectures being online. We just have seen an increase in that as well. Also, domestic abuse, starting to see an increase in that probably since Christmas. I know some of the likes of Women's Aid had seen an increase since lockdown, and you can understand that if you're having to live with an abusive partner, and sometimes you're able to kind of go to class or you're able to go to work, but COVID, the lockdown prevented that, and you were almost living with them 24 hours a day, which certainly seen an increase then of people coming forward. So yeah, we have seen an increase, and it's also been good, I suppose, that people have been still coming through the system. We've still been able to meet with students, either through phone calls or through video conferencing. So and it's also made it a bit flexible as well, because sometimes if students are on professional courses and aren't able to maybe sometimes come into the Student Guidance Centre. One benefit, I suppose, of the lockdown has been providing that flexibility and being able to kind of meet people, where they live, or if they've went back home as well. So that has been an additional, and going forward, we will be offering that flexibility as well.
Have you found that social media campaigns tend to help maybe increase awareness or even increase reports on maybe people who have seen something happen? I know obviously recently we've had more interest and more awareness being raised, especially following the Sarah Everard case. Do you find that tends to affect the number of reports that come in, and maybe bystanders deciding to report something that they've seen?
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely does raise awareness. Unfortunately, it's very tragic circumstances. But during that period, over the last couple of months, the likes of the sexual harassment cases, we have seen an increase of people coming forward. And yeah, I think on social media as well, we do have a Twitter account, and we'll post out a lot of information on there and signpost students as well to that. And it's always just trying to find those correct mediums, where people are engaging. But certainly social media, yeah, there has been quite a bit lately, and I think that's really important. You'd mentioned Bystander there as well, so that's a program that we have been trying to kind of get up and running for the last year or so. Unfortunately, we had trained up trainers to go out and deliver Bystander just as the lockdown came, and unfortunately the licensee of the product wouldn't allow us to deliver that online, so they've had to do some quality assurance around that. So the good news is that has been passed, and we are going to be delivering a Bystander session during development weeks. And again, I can share details of that. But I think it's really, really important to kind of get that program out there and raise awareness around the importance of bystanders, and also how you as an individual can support people, can raise your awareness and know what to do, if you're faced with an incident. So yeah, we definitely are keen to kind of promote that as well.
How have academic staff here at Queen's been trained to work alongside QUB report and support?
Yeah, we again, as part of my role is really to kind of go out and sell, the report and support, and make people aware of that. And there's always going to be a need for that, because we're always going to have new students, new cohorts of students coming through, and also changeover of academic staff as well. And not just academic staff, but it's really looking at it as a whole university approach. So we have professional staff, we have cleaning staff, we have domestic staff, security staff, our accommodation teams. And essentially a student could disclose to any member of staff, within the university. So it's raising awareness with as many people as possible. And that is something that we are mindful of and are looking to. I have produced some information which is on the website for staff in terms of supporting a student who makes a disclosure. And I'm also open to kind of provide training to staff should they wish to do that. But really, because there's 3,000 staff, it can be difficult to do that. One other option is to do like a module, and there's various modules that we have to do as staff ourselves. So it's trying to get the right balance as well. And sometimes that type of training doesn't necessarily fit well in a module. You need to be able to be in a training room and ask the questions and get that. But essentially what we have done is trained specialist staff across the university in terms of our advocates, who have been kind of specially trained in terms of disclosure and awareness of signposting, etc. So what I would like to happen is if a student does go to a staff member, the staff member is able to either complete the report and support on their behalf while they're in the room. It should only take 10 or 15 minutes, or they can direct them towards the report and support. And the good thing about that as well is that it's a central data then that we are able to kind of capture in terms of how many students are coming through, what types of incidents are kind of happening. So I would appeal to all staff to make themselves aware of the report and support system, and particularly advisor studies, personal tutors, who may be having those types of discussions with students, that they can signpost them, and they can also contact myself as well. I'm very available and willing to kind of speak with staff if they have any concerns.
So lastly, what advice would you give to a student who's listening and wants to use a report and support service, either possibly as a victim themselves or as somebody who's seen something that they could be concerned about? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would ask them to kind of come forward and speak to us, and that can be done through the anonymous initially if they don't feel that they can do a direct report. A report can be made by a student or by a staff member on behalf of a student, or by a student on behalf of a student. Okay, so as long as you feel that you have reasonable consent, you can kind of complete that form on a student's behalf, and that'll trigger the contact then, and that initial contact. Now, the student may say at that stage, they don't wish to speak to anyone, they don't want to kind of take that any further. That's absolutely fine. But I think, if you had concerns, it's best just to kind of reach out and kind of get that support. Likewise, if it is a friend that you're concerned about, you can provide them information about the report and support. But yeah, please come forward. It will be a confidential conversation within the perimeters that we've kind of discussed. So as long as there's no names mentioned, that information won't be shared with a school or, with anyone within Queen's. Okay, and the student is also under no obligation. So if they don't wish to proceed to a complaint or to speak with police or anything like that, they don't have to. But I think just having that initial conversation, I think is really important. And I suppose just make us aware. So we do survey all the students who come through the system. Once they close a case, we ask them to complete a short kind of survey. So we ask the students, would they recommend the service to another student? And so far, 100% of all cases have said yes. And we've also been able to demonstrate as well, we ask students when they first come through their level of anxiety, we get them to kind of rate that. And then we ask them their anxiety levels, after they've met. So again, we're able to demonstrate lower rates of anxiety after meeting with one of the advocates, which is, is really the purpose of the service. Again, it's about being able to open up and talk about really, really difficult things as well, really sensitive things. So again, that's why we have trained members of staff who are able to kind of do that and support the student and get them the right information.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, John, for coming on. Is there any maybe social media or the website that you just wanted to let people know where they can access some information lastly?
Sure. So the website address for Report and Support is simply just all lowercase reportandsupport.qub.ac.uk. The Twitter feed that we have is called @QUBSafe. And again, that's all lowercase. And I just want to give one phone number here. So you will find a range of support numbers on the Report and Support pages when you look through that. But if there was one phone number that I would give to all students, it's the Domestic and Sexual Abuse Helpline. Okay, and that's managed by Nexus. So it's a free phone number. It's 24 hours, and it's 0808 802 1414.
All right, so I think that's everything for today. We really appreciate you coming on, John. I think it's definitely something that maybe not as many students are aware of within Queen's, and it's definitely something that I think more people are calling for to have within universities. So thank you for coming on and giving us all this information, and hopefully people will take it on board, and I'm sure they will.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Yeah, really enjoyed that. Thank you.